Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to reconvene committee of the whole. So I'm just going to make the motion to make this all official that council resolved into committee of the whole, and I shall proceed. And we were just getting into item 5. Yeah, 7. No, I'm looking at wrong. Yeah, 5.2, 5.3, 5.3. So I believe I had asked the questions that if everyone has watched the actual ISC committee meeting. I hope so. And does anyone want to go through the presentation that was presented to ISC? We've seen it before, I can tell you that. And it was sent back it was referred to the committee. Councilor Ward.
Mr. Mayor, I was looking to speak to it and I just wanted to have the 21-meter cross section on the screen when I did so. That's
Sure.
why I had my light activated.
Okay, can we put that up, please? Nope. Is it that one?
That's the option 3 that was recommended, correct? 21.
Oh, there it is, right.
Actually, I was looking for the picture.
That's it.
I think the visual helps better.
Okay, go ahead.
Previous one. Yeah. With all the fancy colors, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought I'd try to kick this off and say that because I hit my light fastest. Simply because, this is a council directive to explore enhancements to Metchosin Road. But if we go back far enough, I was the author of the original motion. And so I feel compelled to kind of speak to it. What it is and also what it isn't. And I think it's published online as Metchosin Widening. And I think that's a bit of a misnomer because this isn't just about widening Metchosin. It's about a variety of things. It's about addressing the real issues we have with transportation, largely stemming from the growth that we've seen in South Colwood. But it isn't just to make life easier for folks from Royal Bay or Beachlands or points beyond, getting out to Souk Road. As I said in our earlier meeting, there is no panacea or easy solution for traffic going in commuter traffic going into Victoria. We will not solve that at this table. There's 3 concurrent studies going on right now on LRT and the rail corridor and other things. So you could have an 8-lane superhighway through Colwood, but you're going to get stopped in front of Royal Roads in the parking lot every morning unless you leave before about 6:15. And that's not going to change. But so what this is about really is about keeping traffic flowing. But as I said, not just the folks that are commuting through the area, but for the folks who live in the area. So the folks that live everywhere from Kenning Court all the way down, their ability to access Metchosin Road safely and efficiently, their ability to get off Metchosin Road onto the side streets safely and efficiently, people who live down in the lagoon. It's about students that are walking, scootering, biking to Dunsmuir, to Sangster. Nobody in their right mind today would design an arterial road with an elementary school fronting on it and a secondary school as well. So we inherited that issue and there's not much we can do about it. We inherited significant growth, and that will continue to go as well. So the original concept for me wasn't, as I said, just about widening. It was about keeping traffic moving. And I wanted to just emphasize that the conversation around multiple forms of transport has become very polarizing in this community and elsewhere. And I know I'm being a bit lengthy, but I have to say this because I think Victoria, for example, has done a disservice to the idea of helping people ride bikes, for example, because they do it at the expense of vehicle traffic. It's very much a war on cars, get people out of vehicles, mode shift. Makes sense in an urban area. I'm not even disputing the logic of doing it in Vancouver or elsewhere, but the goal is to push people out of cars on a faster timeline than the people in the cars might like. We don't need to do that in Colwood. So it doesn't have to be a bike lanes versus automobile conversation. I think we can be a voice of reason and find the middle ground and say, yes, this is an arterial road. We need to maintain lane widths. I agree with much of what Mr. Conrad and others have said about, keeping the lane widths in this road and not choking back traffic. But I also think we can do these improvements. So in the interest of brevity, I know there's others that want to speak. I was going to propose an amended motion based on the staff recommendation. I'll just outline it now, but won't propose it until Councillor Day's had her time here. But when I look at this cross section, to me, it's quite simple. The way we've got, well, actually take a step back, and I would commend staff for thinking outside the box on this. I know this wasn't preferred initially, I don't think, and I think they went away from the direction that council gave them to say, okay, we're going to have to think differently than we normally do on this. There's been a lot of planning go into other plans, and to their credit, they came up with something that that was different. And when I look at it, though, the solution to me seems relatively simple. It's that you've got a 1.7 meter bike lane, 1.8 meter sidewalk. We meet the needs of all these folks. The 1.95 meter boulevard, to me, and the reason I put this diagram up is that I could see by simply moving that down to 1.7 meters, identical to the width of the bike lane, you free up 0.25 on either side that can be redistributed back into the roadway. Then you create the wider road lanes that we're speaking of here. And then you have consistency. So if you're on a 1.7 meter bike lane, when it shifts over to what is the boulevard lane, it remains 1.7 meters. Now, engineering may correct me. I might have missed something. I might be a little more simplistic here. But at the end of the day, that's where I see the opportunity, is to simply shave off what amounts to 0.5, put it back into the lane width so that we have reasonable lane widths, not just from the edge of the curb, but from the edge of the curb, not just including the gutter component. And lastly, the other piece I wanted to mention was just on the direction here. I'm wanted to clarify to people that nobody's talking about building 4 lanes from Wishart to Souk Road today. I think there's some folks out in the community that live on Metchosin were really concerned about that reached out to me about that. I think much like Mr. Rosenberg spoke to earlier about Latoria, that's a future state scenario, but he wants to preserve the width for it, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So I think the goal here is to create consistent movement and safety and access and egress along Metchosin. And that to me extends all the way to the top of Metchosin Hill. And that's the fundamental difference here as well. If you recall, we were able to secure additional parkland from Beachlands at the top of that hill, which eventually could become quite a nice viewpoint or park. We might need parking there. I think it should be 3 lanes from that point all the way Kenning Court, all the way out to Souk Road, where eventually we see a roundabout. So those would be the fundamental changes I'd be looking for, is restoring some of that lane width and looking to make it 3 lanes right to the top of Metchosin Hill. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Councillor Day.
Thanks. So I do think that it's great that this issue has been really taken up by the community, and lots of people providing concerns and comments, and really looking at the details. And but I think that what we're also trying to achieve here is knowing what is the road right of way that we should be acquiring for the future. Because we all know that we're seeing development applications come in, and we need to know what to plan for the future. So that to me represents that part of the road which is not currently backed up all that often from Wishart to Souk Road. And we know that it's congested and not maybe flowing traffic as well as it could through from Wishart Road all the way to the top of Metchosin Hill. So that's kind of where we started from in talking about this. How do we flow more vehicles through the area? I'm not looking to create a highway through that area. This is all the things that have previously been described with school kids, and we need to be able to have school kids get to school on active transportation means. It's healthier for it. It will eventually be better for all concerned if that actually can be realized. And it is going to require some changes, but we're just trying to bring about the conditions that would allow for that. And we know also that we're going to have to push our infrastructure a little bit this way and a little bit that way in order to best accommodate the economics of it, because replacing the hydro poles is expensive. And we're going to have to minimize how much things cost in order to accomplish all the things that need to get done. So I looked at it from the point of view of the cycle lanes, the sidewalks, the 2 travel lanes, and a turning lane all fit within this 25-meter right of way, with some room to spare. So if I just added up cycle lanes, sidewalks at the widths that have been proposed, and 3.5-meter travel lanes, not including the curb, that still brings us with 4 meters to spare for transitions and boulevards, which is something that we have discussed on a site visit with all of council, looking at, there's some places where the road is at a higher elevation than the boulevard that adjacent to Grattan, for example, or in other areas where a driveway comes out, and we're going to have to handle those transitions carefully, which means that a truly design specific plan has to be created. And that's what I think this motion is trying to get us to. So whether it's a 1.95 meter boulevard or a 1.7 meter boulevard, or boulevards, and that's where we think we'd like to be, but it's all going to have to be negotiated within the right of way, because a larger right of way isn't really possible given the extent of development that's already occurred, unless we want to build a plan that won't be realized until all of those places are redeveloped too. And I think we're looking to build something faster than that. So I'm comfortable with changing what the width of the boulevards is if we need to. But the reality, I think, is, and staff could correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not developing, this isn't a here's your marching orders and bring us a plan that exactly meets this everywhere. We're saying this is what we'd like to have, and now go out and do the investigations to figure out where are we going to have to vary that, and what are the variations that we would like to see. So this is a plan to make a plan, as I've said before, and I'm happy as long as it goes forward, as long as it considers the need to ensure that emergency vehicles can get through, that commercial vehicles that must use this route can get through, and that there's going to be sidewalks on both sides of the road, and there's going to be a cycle lane that is mostly protected to assist with ensuring that riders can feel safe to travel in this area, whether they're going to school or somewhere else.
Thank you. John?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we're where we need to be tonight. Council Ward hit on a couple of great spots. This was an attempt by staff to give you an idea, to have a conversation. What does council look for? And I think that very first initial meeting before we threw it at the committee, that's what staff had said. Give us some ideas. What are you thinking about the lane widths? What are you thinking about boulevard widths? All of that. When we actually get to the corridor study, what we're going to bring back to you is, here's a cross section and here's the consequences. So for instance, if it's narrower lanes, we're going to talk about there's going to be issues with perhaps emergency vehicles. If it's wider boulevards, then we're going to talk about, great, we've got a way to work with elevation changes on the road. We've got a place to store snow. But when I look at the resolution before you tonight, it says, staff to refine the cross section. So we don't have a cross section yet. We're going to refine what we have and come back with a couple of options. It says address concerns regarding travel lane widths. So we'll talk about those travel lane widths and the consequences. The wider we go with the lane widths, the faster the traffic will travel because they feel more comfortable. So the idea with the narrow lane widths does cause people to slow down. So with the bike issue, it is not going to be a concrete median for 4 kilometers in the middle of that road. At the intersections, there'll be concrete that'll narrow and funnel, which will help slow traffic. But in a lot of the minor intersections like Daniel Place and those types of places, it's likely just going to be a yellow gore painted line where cars can move over to get around a cyclist. And according to the Motor Vehicle Act, if bicycle's in front of you and it's a pinch point, then you slow down, allow the bicycle to go through the pinch point, which we want cars slowing down, and then they speed up, go around, cross the center line and come back. And that's a legitimate movement. Part of the resolution says investigated targeted intersection upgrades. We're going to look at all those upgrades and give you an idea of what they are. So we're going to come back with some options, some consequences of the options you choose, and then move forward. So you'll get to make all these decisions in the future. We've heard loud and clear that, you know, we're allowed to maybe move that boulevard width to a different degree. We should consider widening the lane widths. We should look at if we need to slightly narrowing the bike lanes or slightly widening the sidewalks. We want to keep, and one of the gentlemen tonight talked about snow storage. Boulevard's a great place to put that snow, but we have a lot of roads where the sidewalk is up against a paved surface, where we pave, you know, we plow the road, then we plow the sidewalk, then we plow the road again, then we plow the sidewalk again. That's just what we do. That's our business. We do have equipment. For instance, we now have buffered bike lanes. We have equipment that goes in there now and is narrow enough to plow those buffered bike lanes. So as our city grows and as we change our cross sections to give us the desire that we need, then we'll come back with operational asks to get the equipment to do that. And council, I'm quite certain will support that. So I think tonight, if we get this resolution, we'll come forward with some options moving forward for council to consider, and then you can decide what you'd like to do.
Thank you. I'm just going to make a comment here before I turn to Council Ward. So I'm going to pretty well demand, in my own opinion, that we do have, you know, one of the options is a 3.5 meter pavement section. You know, I'm telling you that right now, and I'm looking at the what the requirements in the MOT guidelines are, and we're still underneath their what they recommend. So, you know, I would say as a minimum, that's it. I'm just going to make that one demand, but I'd like to make another observation right now. So, and this was brought to me by someone that's been observing this, and it's an interesting observation. Never thought of it. Never thought of something. And I kind of think of, you know, even every time I drive Metchosin, you don't want to be behind a bus because the buses don't have turnoffs in most of the spots. They stop on the road. You're stuck behind them. And you ever watch what happens behind you? Lots of vehicles because you can't pass because the other side's got a bus just down there and, you know, you can't pass. So that is another solution too, because you know, you got to keep the traffic flowing. Because I look at the success of Craigflower Road, which sees I think it's 7 or 8 times the traffic volume that we see on Metchosin. If I remember the last numbers, it's a gross number. And you notice one thing, all the buses, turnoffs on the bus stops, traffic flows. And then the other one that the other day ago, when I was driving, I just got past the hill, was a recycle truck. You know, again, stopped on the road, and it's backed us up again. It's crazy. And there's garbage trucks, I'm sure, every week. But the buses, especially during the heavy times, they move one every 15, 20 minutes. And so that's an issue. So that's another potential solution that we should be looking at and looking strategically where those bus stops are, because they're part of the problem right now. We've been so focused on street widths and all that, but this isn't going to, you know, prevent you know, backups with the buses stopping in the middle of the street. It's just not going to work. So I just thought I'd bring that that one up too, because maybe we want to address that issue.
That's certainly one of the parameters that'll be addressed in the quarter. So
Okay. Thank you. I shall turn it over to Councillor Ward.
Mr. Mayor, if no one else wishes to speak to it, I was going to make an amendment to the recommendation or to make a motion based on the staff recommendation.
Oh, Councillor Jensen, do you want to speak before he makes a motion?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
then I'll come back to you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Lots of good meat on the bone there. I enjoy the discussion, but the flavor from committee, and it was a great discussion. I chaired that meeting, and there was a lot of good stuff that came out. But what I heard that I liked from staff was that there was going to be flexibility built into this, and I think the example is just right in front of us. There is how we skirt around a pole to save a few bucks, and so again, we've heard some great comments. I'm not married to a 1.95 meter boulevard. I'm not married to a 1.7 meter bike lane. So if there are pieces there, and I think I brought up the point, I could even live with, I get the separated is a gold standard, but I can live with, 100 or 200 meters where it's a multi-use pathway, and we combine that to achieve the road cross section that we want without having to purchase strips of land and without having to move poles. So I'd love to see what comes back in that regard, and yeah, so it might each stretch or a few blocks might look a little bit different than the previous few blocks, and so I like that rather than just pushing it out and widening it and acquiring a bunch of land. It came up too about the value of trees of interest, and we know there's some large fir trees near the store and Hatley Drive there and stuff. So the ability to skirt around that or save a tree in favor of a multi-use path for a few meters, I think the community would appreciate that. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Ward, go ahead and make your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would have to say I agree with what Councillor Jansen said, and I think we're all singing from the same songbook that we don't want to acquire a bunch of land, we don't want to move a bunch of hydro poles that we can. And I appreciate Mr. Rosenberg's comments about flexibility and the approach that's being taken. I think from my view, and this is not a criticism of anyone though, is that what happens is we have these fulsome discussions, we will vote on something, and then it becomes the historical record, and some of the conversation, the context is lost down the road. When someone's looking at this 6 months from now or in another council term, some of us may not be here, there isn't the same context, and it becomes last term council voted on this plan, this 21 meter cross section, and that's sort of ironclad. So generally, while I laud the flexibility and I fully expect that that's the approach we'll take, I think there's going to be various variations all along there. There were a couple pieces I wanted to amend in, so I'll make a motion and it either lives or dies at the table. But I wonder if we could bring up the staff recommendation, and I'll just sort of tell you where I need to insert a couple things. It's not a rewrite of this by any means. So what I was looking at is in the first section, that council directs staff to refine the Metchosin Road corridor, that council directs staff to refine an amended Metchosin Road corridor design based on the recommended 21 meter 3-lane configuration with lane widths of 3.5 or more, exclusive of gutter and curb, or gutter/curb. Oh, sorry. Okay, so after the word configuration, then add with lane widths of 3.5 m or more, and in brackets exclusive of gutter /curb. Yeah, we'll have to put an M after the 3.5 or meter after that. And then one more once we're done here. And then so further down, where it says that council, so it's the where it says, and that council directs staff to investigate targeted intersection upgrades, that section down there, right at the bottom of the page, that it would say that that council directs staff to investigate inclusion of the amended 21 meter wide 3-lane configuration and slash or target intersection upgrades and so forth. And that's it.
Good. Okay, open that for discussion. Councillor Day.
Thanks. I just wanted to address, I think a small wording change might be in order. The 3-lane configuration with lane widths instead of with lane widths with travel lane widths of 3.5 meters because the center turning lane is slightly narrower. So I just wanted to make sure it was reflecting what we were thinking.
Friendly amendment.
I don't believe any second.
Don't need to.
Oh, you don't think they did?
You know.
I just wanted more.
Yeah, sure. Oh, absolutely.
I'm now on. Yeah, and I don't know if motivation's needed or not, or you know what people think, but I do want to note that I've deliberately left in some flexibility. I think Mr. Rosenberg is a willing partner in understanding what council's looking for. So, you know, when I say that some of this could be forgotten down the road, that's not a criticism of staff or anybody else. That it's just is the reality that when you're looking at meeting minutes a year from now, you can interpret things differently. So I think it's important to document the conversation that's had. It doesn't mean they can't come back with something we haven't foreseen here.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Jensen. On the motion.
Thank you, Worship. I'm having some troubles with how restrictive this is, and I recall from committee that committee's advice while we discussed this was, yeah, 3.5 meters was interesting, but let's hear about up to 3.5 meters. So my concern would be, all we're going to get is a report back that says, boom, this is it, 3.5 meters, boom, you have to acquire this land around here, as opposed to, okay, it might be 3.1 meter lane widths in this stretch, and that way we don't have to move these 4 telephone poles. Like it's very restrictive when we're getting one answer as opposed to a range. And I was hoping for something a little more that provided a little more range of options, so that when it comes back to us, you know, we can then make a selection based on the different stretches of roadway. In that current form, I would have a tough time supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ward again.
Thank you. I just want to speak to Councillor Jensen's comments there. I can appreciate what you're saying, but I trust that if there's an impossibility or if there are cost implications that staff would raise those, they would say, okay, you dictated 3.5, but it's simply not feasible here. I think the wording that the committee came up with belies an ulterior motive, which is restricting traffic flow. I think it's dominated by active transportation mindset folks that had an agenda to narrow the roadways. And that goes back to what I said at the outset, that I don't believe we have to embrace an ideology that is, you know, one over the other. I believe we can do both. I believe we can provide safe travel for cyclists, for scooter riders, for pedestrians, and enhanced vehicle lanes. And I think that the danger in adopting that approach of up to 3.5 is we find ourselves mimicking what's going on in Victoria and Saanich and elsewhere that's very divisive with the community. And I see an option here to, you know, it's very rare you can please everybody, but I think we have the potential to do so. And that's why I've worded it in this way. Thanks.
Good, thank you very much. I just have one question, John, and I just wanted clarification, and it's in the funniest place, the targeted intersection upgrades. And I guess is part of the analysis that you look at, do you look at the whole picture? Like it's the traffic network then? Because I'm always afraid for all the best intentions that we have in the world, we target an intersection and we fix it. And then we we screw something up outs down the line. So you have to look at a network. So is that the mindset going into this? And are we using our traffic flow model and all that good stuff?
Thank you, Your Worship. That's exactly what we do. I mean, by targeted, we just mean all the intersections will be looked at. We'll talk about the suggestions. Certainly what I've heard is we want to prevalently have a 3.5 meter lane width. Where we see something at 3.5 meters being a problem, and we need to funnel it down perhaps to save 2 or 3 significant trees, or to, we see an area, say near the school, where it's going to, speeds will be faster on a 3.5 meter lane than your typical roadway. TAC guidelines would have speeds at 0 to 60 anywhere from 2.7 to 4 meters. So we're not building anything that other municipalities haven't chosen to build. And I think Council Ward hit on it, that this leans more towards traffic, which is fine because we have a big enough right of way to do the other things for cycling and bike lanes and all of that. So we're going to target 3.5, and where we think it's going to change, it'll be highlighted in the report so that you can have a discussion on it and understand why it's changed. So that allows us to have that conversation.
And the other thing that I was talking to you when we were on the bus tour there, is it cheaper just to, like, I know that in certain parts of Colwood now we have dual use hydro poles, right? We run telephone lines down them. So instead of because I notice on Metchosin, one side's telephone and the other side's power. Is it possible to just, is it cheaper to just move the damn things over instead of worrying about moving telephone poles? Like, I don't know. I'm just, silly question, but
It's not a silly question. Roads like Metchosin were built back in the day. And then I'm not sure when it was. I think it was sometime in the 80s. Provincial legislation said, okay, this is crazy. You can't have poles on both sides of the road. So they made the utilities come together, put them all on one pole. So yes, TELUS can move over. There's usually some conflict sometimes with regards to how it sits with hydro. It's got to be, I think it's a 10-foot separation and some other things. So there might be some areas where we can. And again, we have to realize that what we're going to present to council is a concept, right? Something we think can be built. When we actually go to the construction piece, that's where we might come back to you and say, hey, we showed you a concept where it's 3.5 meters. If we go with 3.5 meters here, now that we get to the design piece, we're going to have some problems with our storm sewer. And we're not going to be able to put the storm sewer in because we've got a conflict with the gas line. So what we're going to suggest here is maybe for this one intersection, we move it down to 3.4 meters because it's going to save us $100,000 in intersection so we can put the storm sewer in. So when we get to the design, we'll use the concept and then we'll refine it right down to what it should be. So there'll be chunks of this area, although the main thoroughfares would be 3.5. We may have to throttle it down. We may have to shift it over, do things like that. The design component will actually get us to what we want.
thanks very much. That's great. Oh, Council Ward.
I think if the concern here is that we're hung up on the specificity of this, that it has to be travel lane widths of 3.5 meters or more, I'd be willing to insert the phrase with the objective of securing just prior to that. It states the goal very clearly that that's what we want to do, and it would leave the option open for staff to come back in a particular instance to say, in this spot, we can only get to 3.45, for example. If they feel like they're the wording, if it's that rigid. Now, I think it accomplishes the same thing because it makes it clear that that is the objective. Anything outside the objective is a deviation from that and would have to come with an explanation. So it would say with the objective of securing. So right after with there, we just say the objective of securing travel lane widths of 3.5 meters or more. No, that's the wrong spot. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's in front of travel lane where it says with, in between with and travel. It should say with the objective of securing. Yeah, sorry. Right after the word with, yeah, with the of securing travel lane widths. And I think that says the same thing in many ways, but it doesn't leave it a hard and fast iron rule. And that's it. I won't talk.
Yeah,
Until
thank you.
until Councillor Jensen speaks.
This is it, I promise, but quite frankly, I was heartened to hear Mr. Rosenberg's explanation of what we can anticipate, and I was happy, and I will support it even before your amendment there. So, thank you.
Seeing no other hands, I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Okay, that's unanimous. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And at this point in time, I'm going to make the motion that the committee rise and report items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 to council. And on that note, I will adjourn the committee of the whole. And I'll give you some time to set up for council. Thank you very much. Just let me know when you're ready, Heather. Okay.
Get yourself. Yeah.
I was okay with the original.
That's what we.
Is the problem is saving to
Yeah.
it's years.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, when we get to the consent agenda, I'd like to remove North Latoria corridor.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. You ready? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll get restarted here. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, February 9th to order. I've already done the territorial acknowledgement and I will move on to the approval of the agenda. May I have a mover and seconder to adopt today's council agenda as presented, please. Thank you very much. Councillor Jordison and Councillor Grove. Discussion? Seeing none, any opposed? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I will get to the consent. I'll move it on the consent agenda, actually. Okay, I knew exactly what, yeah. Any all those, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll move on. So I would like to start off with a mayor's message here. And I want to begin by sincerely thanking our staff, in particular our finance staff, for the extraordinary effort that has gone into preparing this year's budget. I know many people have been working long hours and under very challenging conditions, and that commitment does not go unnoticed. You're my heroes. We are, however, operating in a new fiscal reality. We are now firmly in a value economy where residents expect clear results and real value for every tax dollar. At the same time, we are seeing shrinking resources and cutbacks at both the federal and provincial levels. Simply put, we cannot continue to budget the way we have done it in the past. We must adapt. We are not immune to the new fiscal realities. Hard choices are going to have to be made in the future. A lot of things that we want to do, but just can't do. Compounding this challenge are the internal pressures, staff shortages, inadequate aging information systems, and the introduction of a significant different budgeting process. This new approach represents a real cultural shift for the organization. And with any major change, there is a learning curve. Together, these factors have slowed the budget process. While a great deal of work has clearly been done, the materials provided for Wednesday's budget night do not yet give council the level of detail needed to have a meaningful discussion and to make a formed decision. For that reason, I am canceling, we have decided to cancel this Wednesday evening's budget meeting to allow staff the time needed to provide the necessary supporting information for a complete and productive review of the financial plan. Council's questions and requests have been consolidated, and I'll be sharing those with CEO Johnson tomorrow morning with the expectation that this information will be addressed and provided in advance of our first budget meeting next week. This will ensure that when council does meet, we are prepared for a thorough, thoughtful, and effective discussion, one that reflects both fiscal responsibility and the trust our community has placed on us. Thank you very much. Move on to item 4, adoption receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption and receipt of the minutes listed under section 4 of the agenda? Okay, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Olson, thank you. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And now open the floor up for public participation. We didn't receive any written submissions prior to the agenda publication, and we received 4 written submissions after agenda publication, and they will be appended to the agenda following tonight's meeting. And again, they will also be available on the city's website tomorrow. Just like again to thank the public for their written submissions. I believe no members have registered to speak virtually. I'm correct on that. And at this point in time, I will open the floor for any member that wants to speak from the public. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, thank you very much. We shall move on. Delegations, item 6, Arts and Culture Colwood Society. We're pleased to have Kathleen Schmalz, the president, and Jill Romanchuk, the vice president of Arts and Culture Colwood Society, to give us a presentation. I welcome you to the stage. Just have to press the button there, Jill. Nope. You just gotta press the button. Yeah, the button on the mic. On the mic.
Press that.
There you go.
Right. Thank you, Your Worship, council members, staff, and audience. Kathleen and I are coming tonight to give you a report to council on the Arts and Culture Colwood Society and the Goldfish Arts Centre, which is part of our society. Okay, first we want to thank our funding partners. This year we have Colwood City Council as ever, the BC Gaming Grant, BC Arts Council, the Canadian Heritage Festivals Grant, Path Industries, Beachlands, and then local sponsors such as Royal Bay Bakery, Starbucks, and many more. We have 55 active volunteers and 300 members. And this year we have logged well over 2,500 volunteer hours, as well as around 4,500 visitors to Goldfinch Centre. And I'm sorry, that's information I just got. It's not in the presentation. Okay, so our plans for 2026, the annual Gifts and Wishes exhibit and gift shop that we had this November to December was a huge success. We had over 60 artisans who presented their work, and it tripled in the amount of sales that we had this year. The center keeps, or the society keeps 25% commission to help run the whole operation. The rest is paid out back as a consignment. We've had really rapid growth, and this has meant that we've had to look at our budget and that we will need more paid staff for our bookkeeping and payouts. It's no longer feasible for us to expect our volunteers to put in 30 to 40 hours of time a month in doing our quite intricate bookkeeping. So that is something that is a big plan for us in 2026. During the Christmas break, some of our volunteers and their husbands, with permission from the city, reorganized our space. And we now have the gift shop out the front as you come in, and then the display gallery and area for performing and literary arts is now free, a much better space. Our achievements, one of our most successful ones has been the well-played table, and I think some of you attended that. It was amazing. It's the first time we've had a pottery display, and it was so successful. We will definitely be repeating it this year. And within that, we did a fundraiser for Goldstream Food Bank, and that raised $675, I believe, that we were able to give to the food bank just before Christmas. The Performing and Literary Arts Group, which is something that has been developing over this year, we have the open mic, which we do every 2 weeks or twice a month. And we are breaking out. We're going to have a Latin night, which will be local performers doing an open mic with a Latino beat. We've really tried to diversify our workshops, and they bring us income. Two coming up this quite soon is a songwriters circle and comics and graphic novels presentation. This is trying to fulfill our literary arts program that we're offering, as well as all the visual art that we offer. Okay, tomorrow we are having our love songs and poetry, and that'll be an afternoon session, and we have performers from our open mic that are coming, and we have people reciting poetry and reading articles. We're kind of focusing on Leonard Cohen, so if that's what you like, please try and attend. A new program, it's a pilot program, which started this last Friday night, is an opportunity for youth to learn how to become good volunteers in the community. And this is run by a child and youth worker, and it's to try and get youth to understand culture, and we hope that they will come and participate in helping out in open mic and some other functions that we might be holding. A big theme this year is combating loneliness, and this may seem sort of, where's this coming from? But it's the center. We want the center to be a place of friendship. We want it to be a warm, inviting place for people to come and feel like it's a hub for arts and culture. We're trying to be very diverse in covering many different groups, for a hub for friendships to blossom, And we are going to be starting soon a makers drop-in group where people who have different crafts can come and just be together and spend time together. The youth group is another example. And then in the fall, we're going to hopefully we'll start a memoir writing group. So people who might have attended a workshop can come out. We're running a workshop. They can come and form a group and work together. Oh, there we go. We also want to really focus on being collaborative between the various arts and external groups. And that is something we started with last year. You see a picture here of the mural that was done by through a grant with youth from the West Shore Arts Council. And it's pretty spectacular, and they had a wonderful time. And so we're hoping to do a lot more cooperation with other art groups and culture groups. So we, of course, will continue to help the city of Colwood with the music in the park. We have a wonderful exhibit coming in July. Marlene Howell is a professional artist, and her exhibition To See is to Remember. It is an exhibition about the Japanese internment in BC, and it's an opportunity for dialogue for those living here to talk about what has happened. Along with her beautiful work, she has the opportunity to exchange everything that comes within our mandate of arts and culture. And we apparently are having a Japanese chef bringing some Japanese buns along as well during that presentation. So it's just trying to be the whole experience. Our Lagoon Arts and Culture Festival, I know many of you attended, and thank you. Last year we did it all in-house. It was a tremendous amount of work. So this year we plan to hire contract assistants to be able to run the festival and to assist our volunteers. Last year we had 846 people attend, and we hope that we'll have over 1,000 this year. And I think if we, I think on the next slide, we talk about, we have the Indigenous Showcase, which we had, extremely successful. We worked closely with the elders to put this together, and all of the artists were just thrilled, and it was a really great occasion. Our mentor elder has suggested that this year that we should have a preview opening, like a little gala beforehand for sponsors and dignitaries and different city councils to come and see and maybe make choices of artwork that could be used as gifts to visiting dignitaries. So that's just another idea. As far as parking and transportation, we know that this was an issue during the festival. This year we will promote the free shuttle a little earlier, have better signs. We are aware that that was not used to its optimum. So we're hoping that this year it will be better publicized. Our exhibitions continue, both member and professional. They rotate about every 3 to 4 weeks. And this year will again include École Royal Bay School with their exhibit, which was very well received last year. And it's such a great way to be able to have young artists display their work. So I want to say a big thank you to the council and people of Colwood. We look forward to continuing to build this artistic opportunities for people of many ages. We want to build bridges of cultural understanding, to entertain, to educate, and delight the population. Thank you very much.
Wow, look at that for timing. Unbelievable. Just before I open it to questions, I just want to publicly acknowledge Kathleen and Jill for, taking over as president and vice president of the Arts and Culture Colwood Society. You've done a fantastic job. I can tell you, I've seen the revenues. Not everyone is aware of you know, how you've done down there. But it's been an incredible year, and I see much success for you guys in the future. I mean, you are a source of pride for us as Colwoodians. You know, I hear it all the time. You know, you've really built up that space, and you really, really are inspiring. So thank you very much. And at this point in time, I'm just going to open the floor to council. Dave, Council Grove.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chairman, and Jill, and of course Kathleen too. Thank you so much for that. I'm really impressed and enjoying the, and I just feel such great pleasure in seeing the growth that's going on down there, and tying in so many different elements, things I could never have dreamt of possible, and the whole range of festivities taking place. So I wish you well, and I hope that we can continue to support you in any way that you see fit. Don't be afraid to come and ask for whatever help you might need. I think going forward, the facility is fabulous. I was down for the feathered one there just the other night, opening, and it's truly remarkable what is going on in that room. Anybody who hasn't been, please encourage you to go. It's just something so special. I'm not even sure how many places in this entire city, not Colwood, but the entire Lower Island, come close to what is happening there. And the open mic nights are great as well. So I think this, and adding this youth hub idea, like you're broadening out in ways I hadn't even dreamt of in the beginnings when you were starting out. So that's really quite remarkable. And I think you're showing this leadership is really something that Colwood can be proud of in a way that somehow solves and touches on other social enterprises that are trying to get a foothold and so on. I mean, you guys are showing the way, and leave it to the artist to have a good sense of rhythm and timing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We shall move on to the consent agenda. One item has been requested to be removed from the consent agenda. That's 7.1, which is the introduction of North Latoria Corridor Zone, and that will become 8.3 under new business. Other than that, are there any items that people want removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Jensen and Councillor Grove. Discussion? Any opposed? Oh. Councillor Day.
I just realized that the qualified donee is also on the consent agenda. I thought it was a standalone item, but I would like to actually also pull 7.4.
Okay, that's removed and that will become 8.4.
He's on silent.
Oh, you're using artificial intelligence, are you? Okay, so 7.4 will become 8.4 on the new business. I will call the question, any opposed to the consent agenda as amended? Seeing none, motion carries. We'll move on to new business. 8.1, Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan Revised Implementation Strategy. Mr. Johnson, could you introduce our presenter?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan. It's the revised implementation strategy. This takes the feedback that was given by Council to incorporate within the plan itself. And Desiree Gibbons, our planner, is here to present to you should you wish to receive it, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please. Thanks very much. Just the changes, please, Desiree.
Yes, certainly. I can maybe just start with the key revisions that have been made to the revised implementation strategy. So I'll just skip ahead through the presentation here. So just to remind Council, previous direction was to provide additional detail on funding, proposed phasing, staff hours, decision points, and to remove the ferry reference from the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan. So the revised strategy does all of those things. And just on the phasing and decision points, you'll see in the revised strategy now a table outlining the 4 proposed phases, taking us from early 2026 to 2030, with the idea that the Waterfront Stewardship Plan or staff would be coming back to seek direction from Council to update the Waterfront Stewardship Plan at that time and set a new path going forward for the next 5 years, depending on the status of the action items included. So just in terms of the focus of the different phases, the first one is focused on draft detailed design. Second one is on final detailed design. Construction phase would be happening in early 2027, and then we'd be monitoring it and evaluating. Decision points include endorsement of annual service plans and budgets, and staff would also be seeking direction from council on any interagency agreements as applicable. Council would also be receiving technical studies and draft designs throughout, and would be able to have input on the proposed phasing as the project moves forward. And in addition to that, there would be annual reporting at the end of each year on the action items that are included in the implementation strategy. And yeah, so the overall, the phasing is intended to be conceptual and it can be revised by council if you'd like to move any of the action items forward sooner or delay them. This would be addressed through the annual service review. In terms of the funding strategy, the revised strategy now includes a like a funding toolkit that identifies different sources that staff are proposing to draw from to support each of the action items. So these include municipal funding sources such as taxation, senior government funding through grants from the provincial and federal governments. It also includes community and interagency partnerships and development-related contributions where appropriate. And so you'll see in the revised implementation strategy, a column has been added with suggested funding sources for council's consideration. Similar to the proposed phasing, these are just provided for as starting points. They can be amended as opportunities arise in partnerships. And in terms of staff resourcing, you'll also see within the revised implementation strategy, a column has been added to estimate how many staff hours would be required for each of the action items to be completed. So these are rough estimates with a breakdown of hours being low, being under 50 hours. A medium estimate would be between 50 and 100 hours, I believe. And then anything above that would be a longer term project or more complex and would be considered would be considered a high level of staff effort required. And then lastly, I'll just end with the staff recommendation. So staff are recommending that the revised strategy be endorsed by council tonight. Other options include directing staff to amend or revise the implementation strategy based off of any council feedback that you have. All right, thank you. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any at this time.
Okay. Questions, council? Did you put the original motion on the recommendation? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Someone like to take Councilor Grove, second Councilor Jensen. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Desiree and Mari. Okay, 8.2, 2026 proposed new policy reports. Over to you, CEO Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a report on the proposed new policy projects. They're not new. These are projects that were identified in both community planning and development services. As Council will recall, we combined those departments into one, which is the Planning Services Department. And what we wanted to do was make sure that we're putting our efforts in the right spots and bringing forward a priority plan of the items and scope of work that we would like to achieve. And we want to make sure that this fits Council's needs. Mari Bossenworth, our Manager of Planning, is here to provide an overview should you wish to receive it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Mari.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So yes, I will be presenting to you our proposed new policy projects to advance in 2026. So the purpose of this evening is to seek direction from council on these policy projects that we are recommending for 2026, and that we would return to council on the outset of each project with a project charter. So just a bit of background, in 2025, we saw the merge of the Development Services Department with the Community Planning Department into one planning department as you see it today, bringing all of the planning functions of the City of Colwood under one umbrella. This has allowed us to better align resources, priorities, and expertise internally. Historically, the Development Services Department was operating at or above capacity because of high volume of development applications. And then the Community Planning Department was managing a large list of policy projects that were typically conducted by external consultants that came with a budget request as well. Some of these projects often lacked direct direction from council and scope of work as well, which made those projects difficult to advance given the amount of policy projects. So I'm looking to 2026 today and recognizing that there has been a decline in development applications. The department is better positioned to take a pause and think about how we want to approach policy at the City of Colwood. We hope to identify and prioritize policy projects on an annual basis, starting with the most important step at the onset is to seek that direction from council. The recommendations of the new policy projects are in recognition of the current volumes of development applications, as well as our policy projects that are already underway. So staff have initiated what we're calling a project planning process. So the intent of this is to do this process on an annual basis at the time of budget or service review to identify what those priorities are for the coming year. This year, we intend to develop this process and the tools associated with it, and then we will use the process in 2027 and beyond. The intent is to develop a policy that will identify the importance of having a process in place to prioritize policy projects. We will also be developing a number of tools. So we have drafted a master list of policy projects that is attached to tonight's agenda. This is in draft form and was just intended to show council that we are currently working on that list. We will be returning to council in the coming months with sort of the final version of this process and a more comprehensive master policy list with a lot more information than what is shown tonight. This process will also include identifying criteria for how we will prioritize those policy projects. And then we'll also be developing a project charter template. So you're going to get used to seeing this template consistently for all new policy projects. Staff wanted to come to council early in 2026, even though we have not fully completed this project planning process, so that we can get started on these policy projects and complete them within the year. Here we go. So as I mentioned, to understand the amount of new policy projects that we can undergo, we need to understand our current resourcing. So this is a summary of the policy projects that we have underway. So staff are working on the predetermined SPIAS project. That one has been delayed given the strike with the province. We're waiting to hear back from them on our proposed methodology. We have Bill 44, so small scale multi-unit housing will be going to planning and land use shortly in order to meet that deadline of June 30th now from Bill 25. Our team is leading the next phase of engagement for the Parks Canada National Urban Park project, and we are also undergoing a park scoping exercise. The urban forest strategy is currently back with the consultant, and they're working on the tree canopy targets that was directed by council. And then the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan. So the implementation strategy was just endorsed, and that will be a continued project in the coming years. And then this project planning process that I've introduced this evening is also a project in itself. So I'm going to summarize the 3 projects that we recommend to initiate in 2026. So starting with development approvals process review. So the sort of rationale as to why we're prioritizing this is that our development procedures are very outdated. They have not been updated to reflect the new legislation, which is really changing the way that development applications are reviewed by council. In recognition of the recent notice of motion related to delegated authority for development permits, along with anecdotal and conversations that have been happening at the council table surrounding transparency about development applications and exploring that opportunity of joint and concurrent rezoning and development permit processes. This is also aligned with council's strategic plan as well. So this proposed scope of work for this would be to update the development procedures bylaw, including that exploration of the concurrent development permit and rezoning processes, as well as updating our public facing documents. So that's documents that are available online to the public and applicants, so the application guides and things like that, as well as updating development application fees. So currently our fees are quite low compared to other municipalities within the region, and we would seek to increasing those fees to better align with the actual staff time that is spent on applications. There is currently a grant opportunity out through UBCM for the local government development approvals process. So we are going to be bringing that back to council for endorsement at the next council meeting for us to proceed with the application to the grant and, if successful, to manage the grant. So the next project that we are recommending is a First Nations engagement framework. So the idea is to engage with Songhees Nations, Esquimalt Nations, and Chianu Nations. This is aligned with Council's strategic plan of strengthening relationships with local nations. This also supports a number of projects that are already underway, so the Waterfront Stewardship Plan and the National Urban Park as well. And again, aligns with the Council's strategic plan. The proposed scope of work is for this to really be a collaborative effort to develop this engagement framework so that we can sort of be on the same page about how we want to communicate and the methods of engagement that ourselves and the nations prefer, and also to get a better understanding of what projects they would like to be involved in. This is also a really critical step to conduct ahead of a potential update to our OCP. And then finally, the last project that we recommend to focus on this year is a park management plan for Herm Williams. So there has been previous direction from council to conduct and develop park management plans. Our intent is to develop a park management plan, one park management plan on an annual basis until every park within the Parks and Rec Master Plan has a park management plan. And then once all of those are updated, it would likely require a review of the overall Parks and Rec Master Plan. This project is also aligned with the strategic plan. And it is also recognizing the shift in capital projects from Colwood Creek Park to Herm Williams. The scope of work for this would be to develop a park management plan consistent with our other previous park management plans, reviewing existing conditions, and then certainly engaging with the community. So as I mentioned, we have a draft master list of policy projects that is appended to tonight's agenda. We will be returning to council to to show a more finalized version of this master list, because this is one of the key deliverables of our project planning process. So basically the expectation is that we have this master list and we select criteria that will be used to prioritize what projects should be focused on for the coming year. This is just sort of a screenshot from that master list, but we have selected projects that will kind of set us up to undergo updates to our OCP and land use bylaw in order to meet the next provincial mandated deadline of 2030. So that is sort of the intent. But as I mentioned, we wanted to get ahead of the project planning process and seek that initial direction from council so that we can get going on policy projects and deliver them within 2026. Excuse me, 6. And the recommendation this evening is that council direct staff to undertake the proposed new policy projects in 2026 and provide council with a project charter at the outset of each new project. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Open the floor to council for questions. Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Sorry. Councilor Day.
Thank you. It makes me a little nervous because I think our policy projects need to focus on issues that are front and center with the community. And that on your list of projects that have been brought forward is the infill strategy, for example. I have heard a lot from people who are, and we all have, from people who are adjacent to or impacted by higher density developments, like on Souk Road with the 6 stories, or in the Whale Road area adjacent to, existing single family homes, who are feeling greatly impacted by the legislation that we need to respond to, and we need to find a way to do that. But also on our long list of things that we had put on that list some time ago, number 37, the land yield analysis, that one hasn't even seen a breath of light yet, really. Even though Colliers did their very high level study, it doesn't help our community when effectively, we're getting that little light, warning light in our vehicle. If council was a car, it would be telling us it's time to get to a gas station when it comes to infrastructure. And so that issue isn't addressed. That what do we do when we're running so close to our max capacity without penalty for sewers, for example? And how do we address that? That the policy from the province is directing us to build that missing middle, but at the same time, we don't have maybe the services to provide for that missing middle. So I'm not sure how we can develop our planning priorities without understanding what are the things that are really going to bite us, and soon, if we don't address them. So it just feels to me as though we've been focused for a long time on servicing the customers who come through the door with development proposals, but not really servicing the community with how do we make that work? Is that part of your priorities, or how will you elevate those to the top?
So we will be returning to council with that list of criteria of how to select the policy projects to prioritize. So certainly things like feedback from the public and issues that arise often will likely be a criteria to prioritize those projects.
Thank you.
I just, I'm gonna take a different tact on this. I'm just gonna say thank you very much for doing something that has never been done in the last 7 years. We never got to touch this before. So I'm gonna give you praise right now. You're letting us touch this. You're putting us in the driver's seat. What a change. So I want to commend you because I just see this as a positive. You know, the very fact that we're doing project charters now, holy mackerel, that's a foreign statement around here. That's great. So I just want to commend you. And I think you're on the right track and you're giving us a number of touch points right now. And I like it. You know, we're going to get better with this. You know, at least we get to see it. We were never given the choice before. We were told this is what we're doing. And we didn't get to have a say. So I'm going to commend you on that. So thank you very much. That's how I feel about this right now. The only question I do have right now on this is that is the First Nations engagement network. So I'm a little confused myself because I thought we were going down this path, a really good path. We signed off and we had a big ceremony and a celebration with the First Nations, right? We did this celebration with what was with the Songhees Nation. And then I understood we had a draft one that's all ready to go and the Shainu were ready to sign it. And then I was told the last thing was the Esquimalt nations. So what's the difference between that and what you're trying to do now? Does anyone know? Like, what's the difference? And I thought that's what those cooperation agreements were. So can you just tell me? I don't know. Help. Because we spent quite a bit of time and effort, I know, putting these together. Do they just get pushed aside now and we're looking for some other type of agreement here? Does anyone know?
So the project that we are recommending this evening is more project based and gets us on the same page about engagement for projects. The MOU that was signed with Songhees, I don't believe there has been much progress since that occurred.
Okay, fair. Okay, thank you. I saw someone here. Councilor Jordison.
Thank you. Murray, I too want to thank you for putting this all together in one document. Like, it's just great to see it this way and the way that you've proposed it. The way in which the list is proposed is nothing's in order at this point. You still need to. So I guess some of those would be moved around according to like grants and that sort of thing that are time sensitive. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, just thank you very much for that.
Okay.
And I guess just with that comment, I would add that our intent is to conduct a lot of the policy work internally now, and we will hire consultants when required, but that is the intent of this new process that we are undergoing.
Super. Could you put the recommendation on the board, please? Thank you. Any other discussion? A motion, please. Okay, Councilor Grove, seconder. Councilor Jensen, and I'll open up for discussion. Councilor Day.
Thank you. Here I am. Just wondering, when I read this, I read it differently than how I'm hearing it here tonight, which is I thought the recommendation was undertaking the specific policies that were laid out in your slide presentation to be the ones that you move forward on this year. What I'm seeing now is that you're suggesting that we come up with a way to do the policy work. Is that correct?
So I might actually make a recommendation to amend the motion to actually include the 3 projects that we're recommending. And that might make it a bit more clear that, as you said, we are seeking direction from council to initiate those 3 projects that I've identified.
Just what you're talking about, the First Nations, engagement network and blah, blah, blah. There's 3.
The development approvals as well.
Right.
Sure.
So if I may then on those 3, the comment that I will make is that First Nations are juggling a lot of things right now. I was just at the SIRAC meeting this morning, and there is a lot going on for First Nations, as there always is. But particularly right now, there is a tremendous amount going on, and there's some changes to the way First Nations are working with one another at the moment. And so I actually do not think that this is the right time to push forward on that initiative, simply because I don't believe the capacity is there on their side to meet us in doing that work. And it really needs their attention to ensure that we do it in a way that meets everyone's needs.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that feedback, Councillor Day. Oh, Councillor Jordison.
Sorry, just one more comment. With Councillor Dayson's asking that question, I'm actually wondering, I guess, like how Herm Willens Park is before another park and that sort of thing, like how we came up with deciding that that would be a priority. So I'm just, does that preclude us from not proceeding with other priorities in that list? Like what's the time commitment for like these 3 projects versus like how many more will we anticipate getting through and that sort of thing?
Yeah, thank you. So the question about the Herm Williams. So the most recent direction from council, I do believe it was in 2024, was to conduct park management plans for Herm Williams, Outlook, and Meadow. We sort of elevated Herm Williams given the shift of capital projects from Colwood Creek Park to Herm Williams. So and then Meadow is a fairly new park in itself, so we didn't feel like it had to be prioritized for a park management plan. And then our intent would be to do Outlook next year. The projects that we've recommended this evening will sort of fill us up for the year. And then next year in 2027, when our project planning process is completed, we will implement that process next year, 2027 and beyond. So we will look at that master list, we'll look at that criteria, and we'll prioritize those projects together, and we'll come up with a plan on an annual basis of what projects we should prioritize. So it's not to say that other projects won't be done, but it likely wouldn't be done this year unless council gave staff direction to do something else, and then that would likely impact another project.
So just so I get it straight, so if we weren't to do the First Nations, which was $300 or something like that, I forget now, and would you come back and recommend another one then, or you? I mean, just say that we were to agree with the First Nations. Oh, go ahead.
This is council's opportunity to make sure that the priorities are right. That's why we're in front of you. If you're not looking to move forward with the First Nations component, what I would recommend is that you send that back to staff and come back with different options with those number of hours and what else we could potentially do with that.
Okay, thank you. Understood. Council Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say I certainly like what I've seen here, and thank you, Mari, for bringing this forward. And I support the policy projects that are listed there, including the First Nations engagement framework, because we can't just take sort of anecdotal feedback or feedback from one individual. I think we have to task staff with going out and formalizing that. I certainly don't doubt what you're saying, Councillor Day, but I think we need to make sure that we've ticked the boxes so that staff reaches out to First Nations to engage them on project related matters, particularly with a lot of the things that are coming down the pipe. So that, you know, invariably you see it in every article that comes out about any development or any project regionally. The first question asked will be, did you engage with First Nations? Now, if they're too busy to engage with us, there's your answer. That's fair. Yes, we made the outreach, but unfortunately at this time it wasn't doable. But I still think that shouldn't negate us from trying. And it leads to an inevitable conclusion. Either it works and we have an engagement framework that begins, or they say we don't have the capacity to do that, and then we're able to pivot and move to something else. And also on Herm Williams Park, I would just say that I think that's a great proposal. We have, you know, both literally and figuratively are seen as putting a lot of effort and money and time into South Colwood, Royal Bay in particular. I think a lot of the public in North Colwood kind of feel that they get the short end of the stick sometimes. And I think putting some effort into Herm Williams is long overdue. It sends a message that, you know, we value all areas of Colwood to those folks who don't quite understand DCCs and new development and how that works. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. So the recommendation that is on the table is the recommendation with those three projects. That is yep. Thank you very much for doing that. Yeah, okay, perfect. Can I get a motion then, please? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question would be for Mari. I'm just curious what level of detail that council will see in each project charter under this new policy. And also, will each project charter return to council for endorsement before substantive work begins each time?
Yes, so that would be the intent. So we're getting the initial direction from council to proceed with the project. We will go back now, and tomorrow we can start developing the project charter, and then we will return to council to ensure that the scope of work that we've identified and primarily the engagement plan will meet council's expectations, and then we will proceed with the project.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
A quick question to confirm understanding. The draft master list of policy projects slide that includes the shelf-ready C9 zone, Colwood Corners designation review, and the infill strategy were all council resolutions. Are they already in stream, or are they being replaced by the three that are here before us tonight?
So we have not begun those projects. We wanted to come to council to seek specific direction, looking at all of the policy projects that are currently underway and proposing new policy projects. The intention that we did not prioritize that is that a lot of those are forming a scope of work for a potential update to the OCP and land use bylaw ahead of that mandated provincial deadline of 2030. That is something that we will discuss with council when we bring the project planning process, though.
So what happens to the council resolutions that were passed? They're just done?
No, those project motions remain on the books until they've been cleared off. So it's not that they're not being actioned, but they doesn't mean that they aren't things that council wants to look at. And what the intention behind this is when we do our quarterly reporting, that if priorities change, council has the ability to do that through that quarterly reporting to say, hey, I think we might have misstepped here. We would like staff to look at this project, and then we bring those back. So this is providing a policy framework of which that staff can then make decisions rather than us moving ahead with priority projects that might not be your priorities. That's why we're here today.
Thank you.
Make the motion. Did I just do the motion then? Yeah. Sorry? Okay, thank you. Okay. So seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Say, Counselor Day opposes. Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're going to move to the new 8.3, which was on the consent agenda. And I think this is just for voting purposes for the record. Is that correct, Councillor Day? So this is just the recommendation from the committee of the whole, which was on the introduction of the North Latoria corridor zone. And there was a motion. Everyone was in favor of it to recommend it to council, and Councillor Day was opposed, and now this is for the record now. So do we need to formally do this? Do we have to pull up the motion again? I guess we do. Perfect. Thank you very much. You are all ready for me. So can I get a mover and a seconder, please, on the motion? Councillor Grove and Councillor Jensen. Thank you very much. Discussion. All those in favor? And opposed? Councillor Day opposes. That's for the record. Thank you. So we move on to item 7.4. Getting mixed up here, moving from agenda to agenda here, which is Kathy. Or Kathy, it was a self-explanatory. Do you have questions directly on that, Councillor Day? I believe you sent a note through on that. Yes, please.
Here we go. So it was a good report. Thank you very much, Kathy, for letting us know about the risk assessment, the accountability tools, and the application. What I didn't see within any of the documentation was any financials from the donee, the Arts and Cultures Colwood Society. And there is, I believe, some risk associated with putting them forward without seeing the financials for the Arts and Culture Colwood Society. And in fact, during the presentation, it was highlighted that the accounting for Arts and Culture Colwood Society is getting more complex, and that they will be needing to hire out for someone other than their volunteers to do that work. And so I think it's important that we have that financial information so that we can make our risk assessment prior to endorsing this moving forward.
What are the requirements, CFO? Kathy?
Sorry, thank you for the questions. The risk assessment, it's the exact same application as we had last year, and it's actually for less dollars this year, for almost half of what they had asked for our participation last year. They need a municipality to endorse their application, and our risk is limited to those dollars that they are asking for, which is, although this was the only element where they scored a high category because it is considered a cash expense, it is tied to salaries. So it's low risk for us in the reimbursement of this model. So our risk is really limited to that aspect of the application. So they are asking just for this $8,000 in funding, and we would complete the same contribution. It's not a contribution agreement, but a partnership agreement, wherein we would be getting that regular reporting so that we can ensure that we're not increasing our risk in any way, and that reporting is due on a quarterly basis according to the partnership agreement that we developed last year, and that we would be repeating that same agreement again this year.
Thank you very much. Answer your question, Councillor Day. Thank you. Any other? Sorry. Okay, thank you. Councillor Groves makes the motion. Seconder, Councillor Jensen. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Day. Okay. Do that, got through that. So we're on to bylaws. Finally. Heather, can I get you to read 9.1, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion that's in front of council is that council give Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, amendment number 228, CD 30, Royal Beach Area 8 and 1 hotel use, bylaw number 2, 2092, 2026, first and second reading.
Thank you very much.
You're
Can I
welcome.
get a mover, please? Okay, Councillor Olson, seconder, Councillor Grove. Discussion, open up the floor. Seeing none, I will call the question. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. And on that note, there being no further business, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.